Well, hello and good afternoon, good morning, or good evening to everyone. I'm joining you from a very unsummer-like south of England. I hope it's better where you are, because it certainly isn't very summery here. This is session 7 of the Customer Success and Leadership Skills series run by our sponsor, I suppose you call them, Customer Success Management. Practical customer success management. And before we go any further, I will show you or tell you about an offer that they have. There we go. They are offering up to 35% off all their online training courses. If you use that code there, the webinar 35, it's on offer for 5 days, although I think it might run a little bit longer. Before I go any further, I apologise if I sound croaky. I've got a summer cold, which is really crazy given the weather, but I have got a summer cold. What was I? Oh, yes, the 35% off. They offer a range of courses, a wide range of courses of support, of advice, of help. There are videos there. There are text-based documents. There are FAQs, a whole range of courses around customer success management, practical customer success management, and problem solving, dealing with difficult clients. There's a whole range of courses there. I strongly advise you to have a look at it, if nothing else. Tell your colleagues. It's really good value, especially at 35% off. And I've done some of the courses myself, and they really are useful and helpful. So please have a look at that. A bit about me. My name is Michael O'Sullivan. For those of you that haven't had the pleasure of spending an hour with me before. I've got a lot of experience in various types of industries over an extended period of time, longer than I care to think about sometimes. I've run a wide variety of companies, ranging from Apple certified training centers through to innovation hubs. I've run companies in the education and the training field. So I've worked in a lot of different areas. I've worked in the city and finance as well. I used to run the most recent job I had when I was working for a company was the European arm of a multinational education company. I've run Apple certified training centers, which we got to be up to in the top 20 in terms of revenue globally. I've worked as a consultant for financial institutions, people like the Nordic Investment Bank, as a financial consultant, not a strategist, actually, a consultant with negotiations to do with their clients and internal structures and things like that. These days, I run my own company. So I get involved in MOUs, memorandums of understanding, heads of agreement, and contracts with various clients, with subcontractors. But I've also worked as a funding consultant for other companies when we were in the European Union for EU-funded creativity projects. This will be helping freelancers, small, medium enterprises to access funding, to structure their companies, and to make the best of what they have, so that hopefully they can succeed, go from strength to strength, move from startups to next stage growth, and so on and so forth. I've also worked, as I say, for an innovation hub for a UK university, where we help the students to take their business ideas or their creative ideas, move them into business. And that would be around applying for funding from venture capitalists, from banks, and helping them to put the business in a financially sound structure, if you like. So they knew what they were doing creatively, and some of the technologies are really bright, some of them are really very good. But we helped them to present it, to structure it in such a way, or to package it in such a way that they could take it to a venture capitalist or to another funder and present a coherent whole, if you like, a coherent proposition. So that we helped over 100 companies move out of the university sector or the university space into a commercial proposition. Now we've got the chat window running. If there's anything you'd like to say, ask, please do. I'll try and get to them if I can. And I posted in there a link where you can give feedback. Please give feedback. It could be good, could be bad. I prefer it to be good, obviously. But if you can tell us what you think, what you feel, what we did well, what we did badly, that will help to help us improve for the next time. So if you have the time and the inclination, please fill it in. We'll be greatly appreciated. What we're going to look at today is Phyllis, yes, if you can make that, that'd be great. Thank you very much. What we're going to be covering today is radical creativity. That's a term that you struggle with, really, because by definition, if you try to define what's radical creativity, are you being radical? So it's a bit of a catch-22 there. And is radical creativity better than incremental growth or incremental change? We can look at that. We've got a couple of examples and case studies to look at. We're going to look at some of the barriers to implementing creativity. Very briefly look at homeostasis, and then if we have the time, we'll look at what the takeaways are going to be. Well, let's start with what is radical creativity? I've split them up into 2 and 2 there, because I think that radical creativity is about challenging the status quo, pushing boundaries of what's considered possible. But not only that, it's looking at it in a different way, looking at things in a slightly different way. But just as importantly, and this is a theme that has gone through most of these sessions that we've done, for those of you that hung on in there, congratulations if you have, that it's about fostering an environment that encourages innovation and experimentation. It's about creating an environment where people aren't afraid to express an opinion or be wrong, or be seen to be wrong, because one of the biggest barriers to any sort of creativity is a fear of, not so much failure, it's a fear of looking stupid, looking like a failure. So partly one of the most important things that any leadership team or person can do is to try and create that environment where people feel comfortable to express an opinion and don't feel they're going to get criticized for doing it, or it's going to affect their job or their career or whatever. It's about encouraging people to be relaxed, and if you're relaxed, you can be more creative. It's about generating ideas that could be revolutionary, could be groundbreaking, could be a solution to a problem, could be a strategy for dealing with a bottleneck in a workflow, or could be a difficult customer. There are lots of different things here. And the idea is to transform the industry, well, that's a bit grand, transform your business, or a function within the business, and to put it on a different footing, on a new footing, to step change, call it what you will, to make a difference, to make the business more profitable or more sustainable, to make a fundamental change to it, but not in the way that people would have gone about it in the past. That sounds terrible, doesn't it? But you know what I mean, that before it was much more structured and linear. These days we try to have a flatter environment where change is encouraged. So but as this is partly about customer success management, we're going to sort of look at it in that sort of context, if you like. And most people know what customer, I hope you do, as we're here, know what customer success management is about. It's about enhancing customer experience. So it's encouraging the customer to stay with you, to do more business with you, to renew licenses. And it's about onboarding and that sort of strategy. And you know more or less what I'm talking about. And in that context, it's about thinking beyond the traditional customer engagement and support and retention. It's looking at ways of doing things differently and to exceed customer expectations. It's nurturing loyalty. And there's something that isn't in there. It's about active listening. Now, for those of you that have been here before, you know that's something I bang on about quite a lot, because I think active listening is very important, because it does drive customer lifetime value and retention. It saves a lot of time. It saves a lot of money. And I'd like to think that it shouldn't come under the heading of radical creativity, which is why I haven't put it there. But it is, in some cases, it's radically creative to actual active listening, this 80-20, where you spend 80% of the time listening and 20% of the time talking. And it's about you collect data on a customer, it's refining that data. So you're taking what you traditionally get, the data that you get, and interpreting it and doing it in a new way so that you will try to understand and predict customer behavior better. So it's taking the data and looking at it in a new way. Can I analyze this differently? Can I look at this differently? Does it mean what I think it means? And using it to create predictive models to identify and proactively address issues before they become problems. So it's if you like, it's building this predictive model. It's what people used to call experience, I suppose. That okay, I can see this developing. I've been here before. I can see the direction of travel here. And it's about, if you like, crafting a workflow or a work process that other people can use, that will identify these problems coming down the line, and you can proactively address them. It could be using machine learning. It could be using AI to personalize customer interactions. And I had a customer interaction the other day with the people that look after my website, and I had a problem with it, and I typing away into the, can you help me thing, and this response came back, and it was a pretty good response, but it was an AI generated response. You can just tell. I'm sure you can all tell, which is great until you come to escalate it. Because what was very good, what was the interaction between me and the bot was pretty good, but it's then how you escalate it. You see, the bot didn't want to escalate or didn't know how to escalate. Perhaps I was asking it the wrong question. It could be me, but I'm the customer here, so I'm not going to say it's me. So using machine learning to personalize customer interactions is good, and it works at scale. But what you've got to be careful with is escalating. How does it escalate, or can you escalate? How do you deal with that? So again, it's just part of this thing about identifying problems as they're coming down the line. So that's a problem that you can identify, that this customer interaction and the escalation can be an issue. And it's about breaking down silos within companies, within departments even. So as just a very basic example, a customer relationship management database that the sales team or the marketing team might be using, and then the customer success management people say, well, I need to have a database of my own. And they'll say, well, you can use ours, which asks the wrong questions because it's designed for the salespeople or the marketing people. So it's say, no, we're going to have a CRM for the company. We're going to design it differently. We're going to build it slightly differently so that you don't have this silo, so that what the marketing people will say, oh, we want this for this, and the salespeople want, oh, we want this for this. It's breaking down those silos. It's getting this holistic approach, if you like, which I think in some companies is quite radical. This is what I mean by radical creativity, is that you take a step back and you think, no, this isn't the way we're going to do it. We're going to do it slightly differently, so that we get this company-wide culture of customer centricity. Well, I've never heard that before, so I'm claiming it as my phrase. Well, probably isn't, but it'll do for me for now. So that you change your approach, that it becomes a holistic approach. It's a company-wide approach. So the strategy where it's not I'm in sales, I'm in marketing. We're all customer facing, we're all revenue generating, and we all work together and to understand and to contribute to enhance the whole thing. So that's, in a lot of companies, I think that's quite radical. That's what I mean by radical creativity. You don't have to be tearing down walls and tearing documents up and what have you. It can be small things that are difficult to do, because I'm not pretending it's easy. But it can come under the heading of a small thing that we can do that is radical and is different, and it can create a return quite quickly. On the other hand, then you get the other side of this coin is this incremental change, which some people think is better. I'm not saying one is good, one is bad, but you do little things. So you do the small things better. If you like, it's step by step. It's you improve small things like your customer response time, and you will improve your onboarding process, for example, or your documentation, or your pre-sales pack. And you do small little things that are incremental, and you look at it and you review it and then you change it slightly and you go in this sort of iterative approach, a step-by-step approach, where you might identify a training need and there's a small thing and you do a little thing here. You don't tear the whole thing up and say, oh, we're gonna do this all differently. We're just gonna do this little thing here or this little thing there. It might be the marketing sheet. Yeah, you send this thing out, survey. You send this thing out on SurveyMonkey, and it's a slight change to it. It's a different question, or it's a different type of question, and that can produce different answers, because obviously the answers you get depends on the question you ask. So the better the question, the better the answer, the better the data. Otherwise, it's garbage in, garbage out. I'm sure you all know all this sort of stuff, but you do it gradually and you refine it, and you refine the interfaces, and if you're using apps or you're using other software, you incrementally change it. And with your data analytics, you're collecting the same data, but you look at it and interpret it. You may interpret it slightly differently, and you act upon different things. It might be the way you collect it. It might be the way you analyze it. I say it might be different adjustments to survey questions. The methodology is how you do it. There's small little changes that will hopefully make you more profitable, more sustainable. It will reduce customer churn, all the KPIs that customer success managers are measured by, and you gradually make it better. A bit of training. Your policies are different. You equip the people in the customer-facing roles slightly differently. And you do it step by step by step. You do small little baby steps, if you like, and you may get to the other end. It may take you longer. And in some companies, they're better suited to it because they deal with that sort of change better than they deal with this. We're going to have this whole new approach to it. We're going to throw things on the wall and see what sticks and run it up the flagpole and see who salutes and all this malarkey and all this stuff that you've heard 1,000 times before, which in some companies is great. I'm not saying it's going to be successful, but in other companies, no, we're going to do it slow and steady, and that's the way they do it. So is one better than the other? You tell me. I don't think it's a matter of choosing which is better. I think it depends on the context. It depends, as I just said, on the company, on the context, on the organization and the situation, and which industry they're in, what industry they're in. Is it an industry is the company in an industry that is undergoing radical change? And I'll show you an instance of what I mean by radical change in a second. So is it a company that's in a radical change? It needs to get into new markets. It needs to differentiate itself. Its market is being redefined. Its market is changing, and it needs to change quickly, and it needs to change dramatically. Because otherwise, I ran a program a while back called Distinct or Extinct. So you had to be distinct, or you were going to be extinct. And I think in some cases, that's when radical creativity isn't a matter of choosing which is better. It's the only choice you've got, because you don't have the time to move incrementally, because the environment you're living in, this, if you like, the sea that you're swimming in, is changing too fast. So you've got to stay ahead of the curve, if you like, and you've got to disrupt or be disrupted. But in some industries, incremental progress is safer because it's more controlled. This steadily improving products and services or processes. If you're in a stable industry, or you're in a regulated industry, for example, then certainly incremental is better. For just so you're a drug company, you're in a pharma bio company, and you come in one day and say, right, I'm going to change the whole way we do. I'm going to change the way we make this particular drug that makes us a fortune. I'm going to change the process of the production process, or the research way we do this. And you can just imagine the regulators going, oh, hold on a minute here, just a second. Let's stop, and we're going to review everything you're doing, because we can't let you do this. So that in that circumstance, radical creativity isn't going to work. Not in that context. It may work in their marketing or in other ways, but it doesn't work in their core business, which is researching, making drugs. So there it's about tweaking, changing slightly, moving on bit by bit. And effective leaders, good leaders, understand where radical creativity works and where incremental change works. And sometimes it's a bit of this and a bit of that, depending on which part of the business you're in. But fundamentally, it's about context. And quite often, it's about a blend of the two. It's not going to go, oh, we're going to go gung-ho down this road, or we're going to go step down that road. We might take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and put it together. And that's what leadership's about. It's about choice. It's about making the right choices. But let's say I was going to talk about where radical worked, where radical took a business, took an industry, if you like, and turned it on its head. Completely turned it on its head. For those of you that have been here before, I do apologise. You may know I'm a bit of an Apple fanboy, and Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive have come up quite a lot with me, because I think they are just a great, not role model. They're a great, if you like, example of what radical creativity, game-changing, blindsiding is about. So the iPhone was launched in 2007. And those of you that can remember that far back, unfortunately I can, mobile phones were about the size like that, and they had buttons on them and a very small screen, and people used them to make phone calls. Imagine that, a phone that you make phone calls on. So we were all doing this, and maybe doing a little bit of texting, so on and so forth. And then the iPhone turned up. Gosh, the iPhone turned up. And what did it do? You could listen to music. You could browse the internet. You could play games on it. Hold on a second. This isn't a phone. This is I don't know. It's a destination. It's an entertainment center. It's whatever you want it to be. It had multi-touch interface that you could interact with it. You could do one of the great things was this pinch to zoom thing that is just, don't even think about it now. It's just there. It's just there. And it was a device. It was a phone. It was a platform, and you had software applications, apps. Let's face it, for the iPhone, App Store, no, don't need. Never heard of it. Don't need it. So the iPhone generated this ecosystem of app developers and all sorts of gaming opportunities and internet opportunities, all sorts of things. And it was just completely out of the blue. It was a complete game changer. And it looked different. I mean, do you remember the old little phones? As I said, in the UK, we have something called a Mars bar. I don't know if you get it overseas, but they used to call these Mars bar phones. So they were about that long, about that all round, and that was it. That was the sort of standard phone that you get from Motorola or from Nokia. Remember them? Yeah. Then this thing came along. It's sleek. It was minimalistic. It was modern. And it didn't have traditional keyboards, didn't have styluses. It was just, wow. It was wow. Now that's my idea of being radical. But it could have gone horribly wrong. He could have, Steve Jobs and Johnny Ive could have totally misjudged the market. They took a calculated gamble, and it paid off. Boy, did it pay off. And it just turned the company from being a computer company into a music publisher, which essentially is what Apple is these days. They're a music publisher, they're a music company. So that's what I'm thinking about, radical creativity, that in the right circumstance and in the right, with the right people, you can be radical and get away with it. So let's take a little scenario. So we've got this boardroom, meeting in a boardroom with a tech company. We have the CEO there, and we've got the head of product development, and they're discussing the future of their flagship product. And as I said, we've been leading in the sector with our flagship product, but it's time to think beyond the curve. We can't afford to rest on our laurels. They're in the tech sector here, so it's fast moving, it's disruptive, and everyone thinks, oh, God, I don't want to be the next person that's eaten alive by the next iPhone. So she said, I've been reading about radical creativity, and I think we ought to consider it. And Laura says, well, yeah, I agree we need to change, but from what I've heard, radical creativity is quite a challenge. It could mean disrupting our existing workflows and risking our current success. So this is the other side of it. we're doing all right, thanks. I'm doing nicely. Radical creativity might mean that we can't, while we're being radically creative, we can't carry on doing what we're doing. So our workflows, our cash flows are going to suffer. So this is the other side of it. We don't want to risk. I'm comfortable with my current success here. And then Emma says, yeah, I understand the concerns, but if we want to keep our edge, we need to foster a culture where radical creativity thrives. And this is, I think this is the key here, is this culture where radical creativity thrives. It's not just about inventing a new product. It's about challenging the status quo, engaging in dynamic ideation, and pursuing unexplored pathways. Isn't it? It's about creating this environment where people aren't afraid to put forward ideas, new ideas, different ideas, good ideas, bad ideas, but ideas. And you want to create this culture that isn't necessarily going to impinge on your current workflows and your current cash flows, but you can develop this thing, if you like, in parallel, that runs alongside, and then eventually, if it looks like you come up with something that's going to be a game changer, you can implement it. Then she starts to bring the team member around, the head of product around. Radical creativity could open new avenues for us, but it also means we need to cultivate a mindset that views failure as an opportunity, and learn to grow, and opportunity to learn and grow, not as a setback. And it's about changing this mindset and this environment and this culture, but it's about communication. Because Emma hasn't come along and said, this is what we're going to do. She is trying to communicate and take people with her, because that's part of the thing here. You have to take people with you. That's where our leadership comes into play. We need to make our team understand that if it's okay to fail, when you're trying to innovate, it's okay to fail when you're trying to innovate. And we need to promote a culture where everyone feels encouraged to voice their unique ideas, communication, and no matter how out of the box they may seem. And it's about this active listening, that people feel they're going to get listened to. Because when they think they're being listened to, when you value them and their opinion, people blossom. They swell, if you like. It's like when you're watering a plant, you watch it grow. And you're bringing her around. I see your point. In fact, engaging in radical creativity could also help us to attract more innovative minds. This is right, you see. So if you get a reputation for being innovative and radical and so on and so forth, you're going to attract a different type of person. Banging on about Apple will attract a certain sort of person. When I used to run the Apple Training Center, when someone came in to see me, you could almost always tell when they walked through the door, if you didn't know them, if they were an Apple person or not. And there's something about them. You know, they tend to, I suppose, they recruit in their own image. I don't know. But you get different types of people. So she said that you can attract more innovative minds, make the team even stronger. And in the long run, it could yield significant rewards. And exactly, let's start working on this. I'm sure that with our combined efforts, we can make our company a hub of radical creativity and innovation. It's a tech company, remember, not a drug company. But in this context, that sort of thing, a hub of radical creativity and innovation works. But it's multidimensional. See, Emma embodies this radical creativity in her leadership approach by encouraging and developing a supportive culture. It's okay to fail. I'm going to listen to you. I'm not going to sack you. Taking calculated risks, because they're not saying you can gung-ho and throw everything out the window and start all over again, because that's pretty risky. Taking calculated risks and valuing diverse perspectives. So if you're bringing different people in from different cultures, you're going to get different viewpoints. And when I work with people on projects, people will come to me and say, I design learning programs for people and onboarding and that sort of thing, with wonderful things. And they come along to me and say, what do you know about Industry 4.0? No, nothing at all. And they said, oh, well, I don't know if that's going to be any good. And I said, well, yeah, but sometimes it's an advantage not knowing about Industry 4.0. Because then I can ask what I call the idiot question. And quite often the idiot question is, well, why not? So we want to do this, or we can't do this. Well, why not? Oh, well, it's because, and then you're challenging. It's this creative, radical creativity, asking the idiot question. So that Emma sees the potential where others may not see, sees potential where others might see challenges, and she's not afraid to steer a team in a new an unexplored direction. I'm not saying we just sail off the edge of the world, but let's just, if you like, if we go a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, and you never know what might happen. So it's about challenging conformity, embracing new ideas and to support radically new ideas, embrace differences, sorry. Keep a sense of humor. That's very important, because taking yourself too seriously, taking your job seriously is fine. Taking yourself too seriously will put people on their guard. They don't feel that they can talk to you. Create a positive environment. We've talked about that. Removing barriers to radical creativity. What are the barriers? Well, we'll look at those in a minute or two. Be vulnerable. I think that's quite important, being vulnerable, because being vulnerable is another way of saying I'm going to be open. I'm going to listen to what you're going to tell me. I don't mind admitting I'm wrong. Gosh, I spend 50% of my time being wrong, because when I send something to a client, 50% of it comes back with, I don't like this, or I don't like that, or can you change this, or that doesn't work. I can't sit here and say, well, I told you it wasn't going to work. You wanted to do it, fine. But it's about not being hurt by being vulnerable. Yeah, okay, I'm fine. I suggest this didn't work. Sorry, let's try again, do it a different way. But in embracing higher levels of uncertainty and risk, let's try and do it this way. Excuse me. Let's try and do it this way. See if this works. See if that works. And if it doesn't, okay. Now we found out it doesn't work. It's back to the light bulb, isn't it? Edison didn't fail. He just found 999 ways not to make a light bulb. We heard it all before, but it's true. I didn't fail. I just found how not to do it. So I'm better equipped in the future. So what is it? Is radical the way forward? Is incremental the way, is more efficient? I think we agree that we all have a view. But it's not black and white. It's not cut and dried. There's very few things are in business. It's about context. It's about feeling. It's perhaps a bit about compromise and taking a bit horses for courses, as we say in the UK. I don't know if that's an expression you've come across, but what's the right blend for the particular situation that we're facing? Whether it's customer success, whether it's product development, whether it's marketing a new toothbrush, who knows? It's about picking the right situation. And just one example of a bit of a radical way of doing things, you may have come across this before, the Google 20% time policy, that they had this idea, it's back a few years ago now, that it was introduced by the founders that it's their way of encouraging innovation and creative thinking, that their employees were encouraged to spend 20% of their time on projects that they cared about, but weren't actually mission critical, if you want. It wasn't about what Google did or what they did within Google. And generally, they regarded this radical approach was at least involved in or partly responsible for the development of some of the most successful products they've got. There's Gmail. I mean, most people use Gmail. I certainly do for my office stuff and what have you. Google Maps. I mean, how often now do you see people walking down the street with their phone, looking to turn left, turn right, or in their car with the sat navs and use Google Maps and what have you? It's just there. And when you look for a business on the internet, how often do you see now that they don't have this little map springs up with the little red pin? You know, this is where they are. This is where you need to get to, and so on and so forth. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. And this generally regarded that this 20% policy was at least partly responsible for the Gmail and for the Google Maps. And there were some other options to look at. So I looked around and I thought, well, there's one where I don't think I can't see how it's going to work. So I picked the leisure industry. Because the leisure industry, you think about leisure industry, you think running, cycling, gyms, yoga, aerobics, whatever. And they needed to change things. They changed things up. So then virtual reality came along. And virtual reality has changed the way people look at things. Or they said, well, can we reimagine this? Let's ideation, this ideation word. Let's see if we can do things differently. So they're going out for hyper reality experiences that combine VR with physical environments, and you can touch things and you can smell it. And it's a leisure industry that you can travel without traveling, or you can Let's take a very simple example. You can play 10-pin bowling or ping pong or whatever you want on, I don't think what it's called, but the little machine, can't remember what it's called. And there was another one called the Void. And although the Void walked straight into the COVID pandemic, and so they ran into financial trouble. But the idea was great, that they had this fully immersive experience, and they were looking at doing things differently and in a radical way. And think about other companies like Peloton and Swift. I mean, they are cycling, they are a bit cycling orientated. If any of you out there are cyclists, you will know about these people. And sitting on a stationary bike, whether it's in a gym or you've got one at home, it is a pretty soulless, desolate thing to do. I know, because I've done it. And they came along and they said, oh, we're going to use VR. We're going to use this sort of collaborative experience, this social media experience where you can get on the bike and you can cycle with other people, or you can cycle up mountains. And they fundamentally changed it. So instead of sitting on this static bike going round and round and round, oh God, isn't it boring? You can now cycle up a mountain in France, or a mountain in the west coast of America, in Oregon, wherever, say Oregon. And they changed it completely, because they thought that we can take this and we can do it differently. We can think differently. Let's stop, and we can disrupt. And now a lot of the new bikes being sold, certainly in the UK, are Peloton equipped, or you can use Zwift. And there's a friend of mine that has quite a nice living, thank you very much, making videos for Peloton that they then load onto their site. And then they might be cycling around one of our national parks, or he goes over to Europe and films these going up mountains or up passes, and maybe then puts them on there, and people do this. So, there are lots of spin-offs and what have you here, but it's about reimagining what you do and doing things slightly differently. And as I said, we come back to this, data is the new oil. I said, the more you refine it, the more valuable it becomes. And with things like customer success management, you've got CRMs, and you've got them, they've got HubSpot and Salesforce and Zoho and so on and so forth. And they're very good at collecting data, and they can analyze data. And so you can build your teams around it and manage relationships, and you can see what's going on and so on and so forth. But then, can I use AI to do any of this? Can I use machine learning? So can we build a mechanism for improving how we predict customer behaviors, how we can identify trends? Can the machine, if it's taught properly, identify things that I wouldn't see, or will it look at things in a different way? Now, I happily admit I use ChatGPT all the time, because I use JavaScript in my in the stuff that I design, and I am not a coder. Believe you me, I'm not a coder. But I can take one of these machines and ask it to write a piece of code for me that I want it to do a certain thing, and it will write the JavaScript for me. And I can look at it and I can put it into the program that I'm creating, the stuff that I'm developing. And I can say to it, oh, can we try and do it this way? I'll do it that way. And it will churn it out for me. And I can play with it, and so on and so forth. And you can do things differently, or it will come back and say, is it possible to do this? And it will come back with this design, and so on and so forth. There are lots of things that you can do if you step back and think differently, I think a bit more radically. Creative, it's a word in this context that I don't know that it's correct. It's thinking originally, I think, is a better one than creatively. And then you get these chatbots, and I spoke about chatbots earlier. They can provide support 24/7. You've got machine learning and And there are things that you can do and try and do and integrate and implement that before would have been too expensive. It'd be too expensive to develop, too expensive to integrate, too expensive to run. And all of a sudden, it changes what's possible. And I'm not saying that ChatGPT is a great idea, it's the best idea in the world, or the Google version of it, or the Apple one will probably be coming along, because Apple have brought out these new virtual reality headsets, which I haven't seen, but are hopefully very good. So it could change the way you do things, what you think differently, and it opens your imagination up. And the customer feedback tools, the way you use SurveyMonkey or Typeform or whatever, they can be used to analyze differently. You can take the data and using things like machine learning and AI, can I do it like this? And then you ask AI to write the program for you, or you use the machine learning, or you use a program that someone else has written with machine learning, and this is how I can do it. Or this, can I do it this way? Or so on and so forth. You see what I mean? So it's about taking the data, repackaging it, or looking at it a different way, or thinking, what if I wish, where you used to say, I wish I could do this. Now you'll say, how do I do this? It changes the way that you approach things. And again, it's about thinking more collaboratively and getting rid of these silos. And I'm sure we've all used, I use Slack and Teams and Asana, gosh, do I ever, because I have different clients and they all have different ways of doing things. And so I have to use Slack with someone and Asana with someone else and so on and so forth. But they're very good for just bashing backwards and forwards. One of the clients I've got, we use Asana quite a lot, and they come along and they'll say, I'm looking to do this. How can we do this? And then I'll see it, and there'll be a designer, a graphic designer will see it, or a coder or a software guy will see it. And we can push ideas around and see what's possible, what isn't possible, because the coder will say, well, I can write a bit of code to do this. And I say, well, that's absolutely fine, but it won't work because whatever. Or the graphic guy will say, it doesn't work because this, or have you thought about doing it this way? Or if we change that. So these tools are very good for not just sending, don't forget you've got a meeting on so-and-so, or having this Zoom meeting or MS Teams meeting. It can be quite collaborative and creative to use these sort of things. Same thing goes with data visualization. I'm going on a data visualization course in a couple of weeks' time to see if there are better ways of doing things, because I have my way of doing things. It's not necessarily the best, but I don't know anything better at the moment. So hopefully going on this course will teach me how to do things better, so how to visualize data better, so I can come along with the ideas or the techniques that I picked up from this course and put them into things like Tableau and see if they can help me do things better. And you've got learning and development tools where the courses they run, Coursera, Udemy, LinkedIn Learning. I'm not necessarily a fan of those because I think they're a bit passive, but that's fine. They do a very good job at what they do. And I must admit, I do use LinkedIn Learning to pick up some stuff when I need it quickly. And it helps you to stay abreast of new things, which is why I'm going on this course, so I can come back and use something like Tableau or whatever. And it's about bringing in new ideas, new approaches, new views, new experiences. And it's the same with innovation management. You can bring in various tools, you can bring in people to do things. And I'll show you something, I'll talk about that in just a second. That you can organize, track, you can do prototype testing. This is a lot easier now. You can do these things in VR where you can test the prototype and you can stress test it, and you can I remember the long time ago when I was working for a client. We were in South Africa, and they were putting together a production line for a car company, and they put all this thing together, and they switched it on, and this robot arm came around and whacked this chap on the back of the head. I mean, he was all right, but he wasn't particularly pleased about it, because when they were designing it all, they designed it with people that were 5 foot tall, and this bloke happened to be 6 foot tall, which is an average height. So this thing came around and hit him on the back of the head. So they had to redesign the whole thing. Whereas in modern tools now, prototype testing, whatever, you can build that in, that sort of thing. So there are a whole host of changes and things you can do and look at differently. So I'll simply get some of the barriers. Well, risk aversion, taking risks, challenging the status quo, fear of failure. It does stifle creative exploration and sticking with familiar proven methods. Don't underestimate people's aversion to risk and resistance to change. There can be lots of reasons why they resist change. They may not like change in principle. They might see that, oh, that's my job over there. I'm not getting involved in that. That's my job going to go. Or, oh, I can't learn this new routine, or I can't learn this new software, or this new workflow, or this new process. And it could be that the middle manager or the sort of the next guy to the boss who sees his next step as being the boss, or the middle manager that goes to the leadership team. I'm not doing that. I can see that's not going to help me, so I'm going to do everything I can to stop it. So this sort of personal vendetta, if you like, to makes it difficult to introduce. Lack of time and resources. Well, these will be things that will be deployed by the people that are averse to risk and they resist change. We haven't got the time. We haven't got the money. The turnaround is too quick. It's going to disrupt our existing workflows. We're going to be under cash pressures, so on and so forth. So we can't devote the resources to it. Thinking in silos. Well, this is what I do, and I don't care about marketing. I don't care about sales, product development. Don't do me. No, don't do me. I'm in logistics. That's all I do. That's all I care about. So it's about breaking those down and getting this vision out there and communicating and selling the proposition. What are the benefits? How's it going to help us? Lack of diverse perspectives. Well, that's about bringing different viewpoints in. So if you've got this culture of creativity and innovation, you're going to bring in people with different perspectives, and you can see how you can better persuade people that creativity can improve their life. It could make your life easier. It could, if we can get more throughput, more product through the out the gates, you can make more money. It's about changing the mindset, creating a more sort of productive environment. But inadequate leadership support, we could be the guy that's the sales manager that wants to become the sales director. It could be the head of finance that wants to become the finance director. They all do what they can to subvert it, because without buy-in from leadership, it's not going to work. It's got to come from the top, and it's got to come as a coherent message that leaders, they play this role in fostering the culture, creating the culture, providing the resources, making the money available, the time available, the people available, and poor communication. That they'll get into this void. If information isn't there, it will get filled with something else. It will get filled with what people want to fill it with. So you've got to make sure that you get out there and you communicate your idea, explain what's going to happen, explain the benefits, and just, we're not going to leave you high and dry. We'll do the training, we'll do the support. This is what we're trying to do. We've thought about it, and this is what this is about. And it's good communication, which so improves engagement and can reduce resistance to change. But it isn't just about having good ideas. You have a systematic approach. It's a structured approach. We're going to do this, and then we're going to do that, and then we're going to do the next thing. This is how we're going to do it. So if you like, it's a bit incremental. So it's step by step by step. The structure doesn't have to be linear. It can be much more radical, non-linear. This is going to go over here, this is going to go over there, that's going to go over there. So it's going to be from idea generation to we're going to select which ones we're going to use, which ones we're going to implement. We want ideas from everyone. So we want to engage everyone. Tell us what you think. Tell us what's a good idea. It's what you do all day. You tell me what works and what doesn't work, because you know better than I do. And so if you recognize some of these barriers, I'm not saying these are the only ones or these are the most important ones. These just are the ones that I feel are most capable of making a problem and creating a problem, if you like. So if you recognize what the barriers are, identifying your barriers is the first step towards overcoming them. What are the problems likely to be? And then we'll see what we can deal with them. And if we've got the wrong ones, then we'll deal with the ones we found out. And if we've got the right ones, well, then great. So radical leaders, what are they? Well, they're visionary. We've said that. They can communicate an idea. They can they can challenge the status quo, and they can promote new ways of thinking. And they're courageous. They're not afraid to think differently. They're not afraid to have the courage to make a decision. We're going to do this. We're going to do that, and they'll support ideas. They say, I'm supporting this idea. If it goes wrong, fine, but we're never going to know unless we try. And they're resilient. That when it does go wrong, they bounce back. They don't say, "Oh, that's it, give up." First sign of trouble, give up. We'll go back to doing it the other way. They're resilient. No, we're going to try it again. We're going to see fail better. You've heard all these sort of cliches and these management things, but they're right. Didn't work. let's start again. Failure is part of the creative process. It's natural because you're being creative. You don't know that it's going to work. You think it might and you hope it will, but you don't know that. And then being adaptable. If you've got to be flexible, resilient, okay, we're going to change course. This didn't work. We're not going to reverse course, but we're going to change course. We're going to do things in another way. We're going to try and go round it or over it or under it. So you've got to be adaptable. You've got to be open-minded, listen to other people, listen, be receptive to ideas. And as I go back to this culture of, I'm here, tell me what you think. You're the experts on what you do. Tell me what you think, and we'll see if we can take a bit from here and a bit from there and put it together. But I'm going to be open-minded and not saying I've got the best of ideas, which is part of, oops, what have I done? Sorry, where we go? Oh dear, hold on. Hey, there we are. And it's being collaborative, because that's part of being adaptable, open-minded is being collaborative, isn't it? But you bring people together in teams, you encourage cross-functional development and getting away from these silos, and you encourage diverse opinion and this sort of this catalyst. And you've got to be empathetic. You've got to understand that some people don't want to do this, that some people will be scared by it, some people will be against it, they'll resist it for a range of reasons. And just pretending it isn't there doesn't work. You've got to be empathetic and to understand. It's about hearts and minds, isn't it? And understand, try and communicate that it's good for the business. If it's good for the business, it's good for you because we pay your salary. At the end of the day, end of the week, end of the month, we pay your salary. So it's in your interest for the business to be successful. So come and help us for it to be successful, and be supportive of learning and development. It's not, people see learning and development as a cost. It's not. It's an investment. I'm going to say that because that's what I spend half my time creating is new learning and development for people. Courses and material, but it's not a cost, it's an investment. And so you've got to be committed to and be seen to be committed to continuous learning and development, because not only does it pay off in terms of as someone once said to me, you think training is expensive, you try lack of knowledge. That's more expensive, because if you're fixing a car and you don't know how to do it and you do something, you could wreck the whole engine, for example. So you think training is expensive, try the alternative, because that could be even more expensive. So it's about creating this. We're not going to leave you high and dry. We're going to train you to do this new thing. We're going to help you to understand better. We're going to give you new skills. People feel valued, they feel engaged, they feel part of the whole. So we're going to go a very quick case study of this company called Pixel Perfect Graphics. Doesn't exist, Pixel Perfect Graphics, but the company does. And the reason I know the company does is because this is a case study that I was involved in. And they obviously weren't thinking entirely clearly the day when they rang me up and said, can you come down and have a chat with us? Because it's a guy I've known for a long time. And they're not in London, but they're in the UK. And they're a leading graphic design company. And I do know they're very successful. They've got a wide portfolio of clients, and they're into licensing for character development, character licensing on the back of cornflake packets. You'll see all sorts of things, animated characters. I can't think of what I want. The logos. The Olympics have these logos, and the Commonwealth Games had these logos. We had the Commonwealth Games in the UK a couple of years ago, and they designed the characters, the sort of the face of the games. You know, the sort of thing. I mean, I can't think of the word of a mascot. They develop the mascot. So that's the sort of neck of the woods they're in, and they do digital style of entertainment stuff. And they're very good at what they do. But the leadership recognise that although they're creative in their output, they weren't very creative in their worldview, if you see what I mean. That they wanted to have a more innovative approach to the way they run projects or the way they design things, and they wanted to change the environment that the people worked in. They wanted to create a more radical creativity. And you think, well, they've got 100 people in there, they're all creative. They're all graphic designers, they're animators, they're 3D artists, they're you name it, they do it. And these guys are really creative. But I don't know if you've noticed about creatives, if you come across creatives, if they get hold of something, they hang on to it like for grim death. It's like if an editor has a scene in a film that he particularly likes, he will move heaven and earth to keep that scene in there, and he will cut around it and he'll change things. And the balance of the film will suffer, but he wants to hang on to it until the producer or the director comes along and says, no, get rid of it. And they say, oh, you can't, it's beautiful. And you say, fine, but it doesn't work in the film. And that's what creatives tend to be like. They're very creative in some ways, and they're very stick in the mud in others. So that was the problem they had. The challenge was to transform the environment, the culture they've got, that they've done the same thing in the same way for a long time. It's been successful and their output's very good, but they wanted to change the way they did things. So they wanted to do radical change, if you like, radical creativity. They had to overcome the resistance to change and encourage risk-taking and be more, I don't know, explore different, be more adventurous. That's what I want. So they'll be more adventurous and create mechanisms for new ideas, implementing new ideas. So we sat down and we talked about this, and I know what they do, and I know the industry more or less, but I didn't know in detail what they did. So what did we do? What did the CA do? Decided that this is what we want to change the way we do things. So she started by taking ownership of it and communicated the vision of what she wanted to do, what they wanted to do as the leadership team, the husband and wife team, what they wanted to do, the company's future. It was going to be innovative and groundbreaking. And she emphasized the importance of radical creativity when she was having meetings, when she was sending emails out, when she was doing presentations. And when the designers sat in with the client, so the project meeting and the sort of the first steps of what we want to do, and she'd go into we want to do things, we want to look at things differently, and the creators sitting there going, oh, I don't know so much, oh, I don't know, it's going to be, and the clients loved it. The clients absolutely loved it because they want to differentiate themselves. They want this USP, this clear blue water, call it what you will. They wanted something different, so the clients loved it. And so they went on to develop this what they call a creativity lab. And it was this dedicated space within the office where you would have this anything goes approach, brainstorming, workshops, call it what you will, where different people would come in and they would just throw ideas around. And they put various bits of software in there and all the stuff that you get in a design studio, you know, the mood boards and all this sort of business. And they started to use, they had this collaborative system, and they happened to have Asana, and they used it in a different way. They used it, instead of just communicating project notes and, okay, this is done, and I've sent this to so-and-so, and that's done, and so this is, we're in stage blah and stage blah. They started throwing ideas around. And it was to think, do things differently. Would it be an idea if we did this, or if we did that? And people started to think, oh. So they then started doing internal creativity workshops, and they did training sessions where they put people onto other pieces of software. They will train them on different pieces of software. And some of the stuff in there was hideously complicated. I couldn't turn the blessed thing on, let alone use it, some of them anyway. But they were training, if you like, animators on compositing software. And they were training compositors on things like InDesign, some of the Adobe products. So they did things differently, and they looked at things differently, and they started to appreciate what was and wasn't possible, and how can we do things in different ways. And they brought in external people. I don't mean people like me, I mean people with properly creative that could challenge the conventional thinking. And so they went on to do, say, learning and conferences and online stuff. And they did some things like this thing I'm going on, this thing for data visualization, things like that, to learn to look at things in a different way. So you look at the same thing in a different way, it changes it fundamentally. They got this fail forward program to encourage risk taking. If you get it wrong, don't worry about it. We'll celebrate the idea, and their learning points, their learning opportunities, even if they fail. And the results was that within a year, they'd seen changes. The creativity lab had become this hub for groundbreaking ideas and so on and so forth. And they got quite well known in the industry for a different approach. People couldn't work out what had happened. They're not the same company. The fail forward program led to this shift where employees became more open to taking risks and so on and so forth, and weren't worried when they came up with an out-of-the-box idea. company, the revenue increased by 25%, which is quite a lot for them. I mean, they were doing quite well before, but they felt they could do better. Client satisfaction went through the roof. So it rose there, but it went through the roof. People just loved it. Just loved it because they were coming up with really new, different, innovative ideas. And the clients appreciated the unique, innovative design. And they got people coming to them asking for jobs. People wanted to work there. It was great. They were turning people away. It was just amazing because people liked what they'd heard. They liked the creative culture. So we're actively promoting and structuring for radical change, for radical creativity. They transform the company. I mean, it's a company in a particular sector. It's in a particular time and a particular type of people working there. But radical creativity for them, made a big difference. Now, I know we're running out of time, and I do apologize because I ramble on. So take a moment to think about it. What are the barriers in your company, your situation to radical creativity? And is there something you can do to be more customer-centric or encourage creativity? Is there radical changes you could make? If you want to drop something in the chat room, please do. Very quickly, homeostasis, fear of change. Don't underestimate don't underestimate inertia, the tendency to do nothing or remain unchanged. No matter how radical or creative you think your company is or your employees are, homeostasis is a real thing, and it will trigger negative feedback in people that don't want to change. Be aware of it. Try and identify, if you're going to change, who's going to be affected? Who's going to be affected most? Why are they going to be affected? What can I do about it? What can I change? Can I incentivize them? Can I reward them? Can I reward the new behaviors? Explain how the change is going to benefit them. Because homeostasis is real, and it's embedded, and it's in everyone. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it. Hope you found some of it interesting. Please leave a bit of feedback, whether you hated it, whether you loved it. Appreciate to know what you think. Thanks a lot, and enjoy the rest of your day or enjoy the rest of your evening. Thanks a lot.